Hello, my sisters, and welcome to my channel, which I have titled Sister Stories, Ageless Christian Inspiration, where we are transforming lives through faith, wisdom, and wellness, using storytelling as our medium, and the Holy Bible is our foundation. These videos are not designed to be academic or theology degree level resources. While I strive to honor the spirit of the original biblical texts, elements of my storytelling are interwoven with details from my own imagination. This creative approach is intended to make God's Word more relatable and easier to understand and apply to your everyday life. The settings may not reflect the historical context of the Bible, the clothing may not match the styles of that era, and the language and music reflect the influence of my own lifetime. I pray that you will enjoy. I pray they make a positive impact and perhaps even be transformative in some way. Thank you so much for visiting, and please continue to come. Peace and blessings, Cheryl. Enjoy. Real heroes are hard to find these days, thanks in large part to social media, which has made the foibles and weaknesses of our leaders all too apparent. We search in vain for men and women to emulate. The music, movie, and sports industries in particular seem to produce a steady stream of stars who shoot to the top and then quickly implode with one moral failure after another. Judges is a book about heroes, 12 men and women who helped rescue Israel from its oppressors. These judges were not perfect. In fact, they included an assassin, someone who doubted God, and a sexually promiscuous man. But when they were submissive to God, God worked through them in amazing ways. Judges is also a book about sin and its consequences. Like a minor cut or abrasion that becomes infected and causes great damage when left untreated. Sin, like that, grows and soon poisons the whole body. The book of Judges spans over 325 years, recording 6 successive periods of oppression and deliverance, and describing the careers of 12 deliverers. The Israelites' captors included the Mesopotamians, Moabites, Philistines, Canaanites, Midianites, and Ammonites. God used a variety of deliverers from Othniel to Samson to lead his people to freedom and true worship. God's deliverance through the judges is a powerful demonstration of his love and mercy toward his people. As you read the book of Judges, take a good look at these heroes. Note their dependence on God and their obedience to his commands. Observe Israel's repeated downward spiral into sin, refusing to learn from past mistakes and living only for the moment. But most of all, stand in awe of God's mercy as he delivers his people over and over again. Wise leaders accomplish great amounts of work without direct involvement because they know how to work through other people. They're able to see the big picture that often escapes those directly involved. So they make good mediators, advisors, planners, and delegators. Deborah, who we are going to look at today, fit this description perfectly. She had all these leadership skills, and she had a remarkable relationship with God. The insight and confidence God gave this woman placed her in a unique position in the Old Testament. Deborah is among the outstanding women of history. And let me point out, she's the only female judge of Israel. Deborah's story shows that she was not power hungry. She wanted to serve God. Whenever praise came her way, she gave God the credit for her success. The sun was at its highest point in the sky, and the heat beat down on the valley of Jezreel, baking the earth hard and dry. That's how it usually was, except during the rainy season, which this was not. Coming from the north and east was the Canaanite army led by Sisera. They were strong in number as well as might. They had a terrifying war machine called the Iron Chariot, 900 of them in total. It was a two-wheeled vehicle drawn by two horses made of iron and wood. Often, the wheels were equipped with razor-sharp daggers that stuck out far enough that it would lacerate or even sever the body parts of the opposing army's foot soldiers that would dare to come near. They were beasts, instruments of brutal destruction that no one wanted to contend with. The very sight of them was enough to instill fear in the hearts of even the bravest of warriors, because they knew they were capable of turning the battlefield into a bloody slaughterhouse. On the other side stood my people, the Israelites. Their leader's name was Barak. He was amongst the prophets named in the Bible that you have inside the book of Hebrews. He was named as having had faith enough to overthrow kingdoms. They were a much smaller force, 10,000 in number, if my memory serves me. He gathered them from the tribes of Naphtali and Zebulun, but it was their faith in God which was their greatest weapon. So while they were ill-equipped compared to the Canaanites, lacking the advanced weaponry and manpower, I had already heard from God and was assured that it was a fixed fight. What caused this war, you ask? Well, personally, I thought it was well overdue. You see, for 20 long years, Israel had been oppressed by the Canaanites. Their farmlands were plundered. They were forced to pay tribute and be slaves to the Canaanite overlords. The Canaanites practiced polytheistic religion with rituals and practices that we, monotheistic Israelites, considered immoral and idolatrous. And they were constantly tempting us to abandon our God. I have a 4K vivid memory of summoning Barak and having a word from the Lord to speak into his hearing. And I told him what the Lord had said. Sisera, the commander of Jabin's army with his chariots and his troops, will be lured into the Kishon Valley and into annihilation. That's what God said. Go, this is the day the Lord has given Sisera into your hands. Has not the Lord gone ahead of you? And I repeated those words, trying to reassure him that the Lord has indeed gone ahead of him. I told him to have courage and trust in God's promise. But this is what Barak said to me. You come with me, but if you don't, I will not go. So what did I do? I went. Now, I'm not altogether sure whether he was being a bit of a coward or if he just felt closer to God by having me there. But both he and I knew that as a woman, I couldn't fight. So it wasn't my fighting skills he was needing. But whatever it was, My being there was not part of God's initial plan. And so with this change, Israel would still have the victory, but Sisera would not die at the hands of Barak. It would be at the hands of a woman named Jael. So the two armies gathered, the Canaanites confident in their superior forces and devastating chariots, the Israelites relying solely on the promise of God's help. They knew they were outnumbered and outweaponed, and without God's intervention, it just could not be done. The Canaanite army, with Sisera at its head, positioned itself near the Kishon River, a seemingly insignificant waterway that snaked its way through the valley. In normal times, the Kishon was little more than a dry riverbed, easily transversable. But God had a different plan for it on this day. As the two armies prepared to clash, the heavens began to darken. A storm of unprecedented ferocity gathered overhead. The winds howled, whipping up dust and sand, blinding the Canaanite soldiers. Thunder boomed, shaking the very ground beneath their feet. And then the rain came, not a gentle shower, but a torrential downpour, a deluge that seemed to unleash the full fury of the heavens. The dry riverhead of the Kishon, which had seemed so insignificant just moments before, transformed into a raging torrent. The ground, parched and hard, quickly became saturated, turning into a thick, clinging mud. The Canaanite chariots, their greatest strength, now became their greatest weakness. The iron wheels designed to cut through flesh and bone became hopelessly bogged down in the mire. The chariots, once symbols of terror, were now useless, trapped in the mud like flies in a spider web. The Canaanite soldiers, weighed down by their armor, struggled to move through the mud. The once formidable warriors were now helpless, their movement slow and cumbersome. The rain continued to fall, the Kishon River swelling into a raging flood, sweeping away men and chariots alike. Barak and his Israelite warriors, witnessing this divine intervention, charged into the battle. The Canaanites, trapped and disoriented, were no match for the Israelites, fueled by their faith and the miraculous turn of events. The battle became a rout, a complete and utter defeat for the Canaanites. Sisera, seeing the devastation of his army, abandoned his chariot and fled on foot. He sought refuge in Jael's tent. Jael was the wife of Heber the Kenite, who was at peace with the Canaanites. Exhausted and desperate, Sisera thought it would be a safe place for him to hide, especially since, culturally speaking, men were not allowed into women's tents. So the likelihood of anyone searching for him in there would be small. Jael saw him coming and welcomed him into her tent, gave him milk to drink. Sisera, weary from battle, laid down and fell into a deep sleep. Jael knew who Sisera was and understood the significance of the battle. So she took a tent peg and a hammer. She quickly approached the sleeping general. With a swift and decisive blow, she drove the tent peg through Sisera's temple, killing him instantly. Remember, I said the Lord would deliver Sisera into the hands of a woman. With a modicum of pride, Jael offered, "Come, and I will show you the man you're looking for." Barak pursuing Sisera into Jael's tent, and she showed him the lifeless body of the Canaanite general, the tent peg still piercing his temple. Jael, as all women during that time, was very familiar with tent pegs, as it was the woman's responsibility to erect all tents. And on that day, God subdued Jabin, the king of Canaan, before the Israelites. The hand of the Israelites grew stronger and stronger against Jabin, king of Canaan, until they had destroyed him. The victory was complete, a testament to the power of faith and the unpredictable nature of divine intervention. The Kishon River, once a dry riverbed, became a symbol of God's power, a reminder that even the smallest and most insignificant things can be used to achieve God's purposes. The iron chariots, once symbols of terror, became monuments to the folly of relying on earthly power rather than divine guidance. And the story of Barak, Jael, and myself became an enduring testament to the courage and faith of the Israelites, a story told and retold through generations, reminding them that with God, all things are possible.